welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing, Eastside Jiu-Jitsu, and that's Badass Wood Art. We finally got the crew together. It feels like, I don't know, Ryan's the busy one now, all of a sudden, and we can't ever get him for a show, but here we are live tonight to talk about training camp and just how damn dominant these wide receivers look on the practice field. And yeah, we can just start there. Start right off the jump with how dominant these receivers look, especially your guy, Ryan, Thayer Thomas. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Thayer Thomas. Well, it's not really my guy. It's more Crockett's guy. But yeah, it's a shifty receiver out of NC State who, again, just has a knack for being able to get open.
He had some shiftiness yesterday at practice. Even Myles was like, okay. Kid can move a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about the entire wide receiver room, and you guys can kind of calm me down if you think I'm being too, I don't know.
We know you are. So
too optimistic, but when you look down the line here, so we obviously have the trio, right? And KJ, Jefferson, Addison, like they're cemented in their roles, but I think Brandon Powell has looked super impressive in camp and shows a lot more explosiveness than we've even seen from Jalen Reagor. We know that Jalen Naylor is high on the Vikings list, but Ryan, I'll toss it to you. How excited are you about this Vikings wide receiver group?
Well, as you mentioned, the top of the depth chart is nice, right? Like, it's an exciting group. You know, you're going to have a lot of stability there. What I'd love to see is that Jordan Addison is just roasting almost everyone at camp too, which is good. That's what you want to see out of your rookie first round pick.
Yeah.
The depth, honestly, yeah, sure, they look fine, but like it's not like our corners, especially like the depth of our corners, are spectacular or anything like that. So they're beating guys who, are either young or who need more development. And so like I'm not overly excited about the depth. Now, yes, Brandon Powell's looking great in these training camp practices and whatnot, but we've had 3-4 years of actual, like, him being on a very good and well offensive schemed team with the Rams. And he didn't really, and it's not like they were like oozing with offensive talent, specifically last year at the wide receiver position with Kupp getting hurt and whatnot. And he didn't really shine for them last year. Was he hurt as well though? Not maybe.
No, I'm pretty sure he played the whole year.
Did he? Okay. So yeah, he didn't really pop last year, and in his opportunities that he had. So I guess let's see it in game action, which I'm excited to see. Hopefully on Thursday with the against the Seahawks. Hopefully he can have an opportunity to shine a little bit in real game time. Naylor, again, it stinks just because he's hurt. Like you don't get to see anything really right now.
Hoping he was going to be out there, but.
And you wish that like I haven't heard one good thing about Reagor this upset. Like, not saying I've heard anything bad, I just haven't heard anything good. Where we're hearing a lot of great things. Hey Nick, how you doing? You've been hearing a lot of good things about pretty much everyone else, but I haven't heard a thing on Jalen Reagor. So I would have liked for them to be able to bring in maybe a little bit more competition for these backup roles earlier in the offseason. We just didn't really have the resources to really do that. So it should be interesting. Let's see how they do in practice. I am excited for Thayer Thomas. Crockett put me on him like early in the draft season, and I did watch some of his stuff, and I was like, yeah, I mean, he's getting open and stuff, but like, yeah, like this isn't like great competition he's playing against, but hey, he's doing it in the NFL training camp practices too. So hopefully he is proving some of us wrong.
Before I ask Myles a question, just want to give the folks in the chat a shout out. We got Sean, Nick, Dustin. Thank you guys for joining. Everyone else kind of watching too. Fire away the questions. We are here and ready to answer anything you have. And the question I have for Myles is, how much can we take from these practices?
Wait, so you don't care what my opinion is on the receivers? That's cool.
That's
Why would he?
I mean, I guess I kind of heard it yesterday, but fine, you can do that.
The people have
Yeah.
heard. Oh,
That's true. Go ahead.
I'm nice, Dustin. No, well, just real quick on the receivers, I actually think for the first time in years that they have a fairly deep stable of receivers to like work with. I mean, I think Jalen Naylor has a chance to be a pretty decent depth player. Obviously, he's hurt. It's hard to like fully dive into that, but it sounds like he had a really great spring. He even ended the year last year pretty well when he got some role, and so I think his skill set is kind of one that can be a little bit more of a true deep threat that they need. And I think then you have guys like Brandon Powell and Rager if he makes it. Like those two guys is like your fifth and sixth receiver. I feel like that, like on most teams, that's a really good like depth. Like I think that's really good. And then Tristan Jackson, who's hurt, but like he was looking good and he's a big body type of receiver. So I feel like they finally have like a good mix, but also like they have guys that can like probably step in and play a little bit. Not obviously to any sort of level I think the top three guys can do, but that's any team, right? So I think when you have guys that can at least come in and have some contribution, I think that's important. And so I think you have guys that can kind of fit different roles too. And I think for the first time in a while, they actually have like NFL level receivers like down the board. And obviously then when you talk about some of the younger guys, I think Baylor Thomas is like a good practice squad type of player. Maybe he could develop into something like a slot receiver down the road. Those types of things. That's like fun. Like I'm excited about that.
Is N'Keal Harry going to make the team, Myles?
Well, he's been making catches at the night practice tonight.
I mean, he's a big physical receiver. I mean, obviously we know he's not that fast, but like he's big, physical. I think he can make contested catches. He hasn't shown a lot, but I mean, he's done more than some of the guys on the Vikings roster in the league. So like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, if he's the sixth receiver, God forbid. I think that'd be like I wouldn't like care as much as probably some other people probably would, because it probably means he's doing decent on special teams, and maybe they see something in him as like just a depth piece. It doesn't mean he's going to play much, but I don't know.
Right.
The question from Sean here is, will Justin Jefferson break 10 touchdowns this season? I mean,
I think he should.
It's a
I think
pretty...
it's the one thing that like he hasn't really had like the Devontae Adams 14, 15, 16 touchdown season. And I'm not saying that like is like a bad thing because he gets triple covered a lot, but I think it'd be great. Like, I mean, I think try.
And honestly, like Kirk Cousins loved Thielen in the end zone, right?
Yeah,
like he just that was like his comfort zone right there. And now that he's gone, he's going to have another guy. I mean, obviously TJ is probably going to become the pseudo, but Jefferson should get a few more looks in the end zone now that Thielen's gone.
That's a good
unless Addison takes those over, obviously as
well. Or KJ. I mean, KJ too. I mean, KJ's look good. I'm curious to see like what kind of receiver KJ will be like if they go more, when they go 12 personnel and if it's KJ and JJ, just how KJ wins consistently because he's always been kind of the third guy. Let's see. I want to see how he is as like an elevated into that 2 position.
Yeah. Another question here. We're shifting positions to the opposite side, but Nick is having us calm him down on Ivan Pace, who is running again with the ones tonight. But it's up to you guys if you want to read what's on the practice field or what's in the unofficial depth chart, because the unofficial depth chart would tell
the depth chart with a grain of salt, because that's like, as you can tell, like Bijan Robinson was listed as the 3rd running back in Atlanta. You're right. That guy's going to be the 3rd running back in Atlanta this year. Like
the 7th overall pick.
Right. Like it's those types of things. Like it's very early on in these unofficial depth charts. Teams are always going to usually cater toward their veterans and make these younger guys earn their place. And Ivan Pace is earning his place. And like, it's clear that on the field, he's earning enough opportunity to even get reps with the ones.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean he's going to become the starter, but I think it's showing that like that dude's probably locked a spot on making the team. I think he's done enough to like show them that investment in him was worth it. And that like, there's potential to be something. Like whether like, it sounds like he's been rotating with Asamoah more than Hicks, But I think as you look at potentially maybe down the road, it's, Asamoah and Pace together, but that's a pretty small linebacker group, but like whatever. I mean, I think that's a lot of speed and that's a lot of like physicality. And so I think the one thing that Pace has a little bit different than Asamoah is I think his read and react. Yeah. I think Asamoah's issue is he guesses a lot more than just reading and reacting, and doesn't always rely on the instincts.
And it's
yeah, when he guesses right, it's like it's top tier. But the issue is in the NFL, if you guess wrong, that's a touchdown. That's 20 yards, like those types of things. And so I think he needs to get a little bit more of the instinctual abilities coming. And I think Ivan Pace might just naturally have some of that. And maybe that's what we're seeing between those two right now. That doesn't mean Asamoah won't be a really good player. I still have really high hopes for him. But I think that just means Pace was that much more ready to like jump in than maybe anybody would have expected out of a UDFA as a rookie.
Yeah, you're not going to look to this show to maybe Myles did a little bit, but Ryan and I will not be calming anyone down on Ivan Pace. As way back in March, February, whatever, we were hoping the Vikings would take him early. But
dude, when we saw him at the Senior Bowl, he looked really good.
He did. And the biggest thing, the question mark we had was just he's undersized, but we set it back there. He's got the speed and the ability to blitz, which would go perfect with Brian Flores' defense. But I want to bring up something that I thought of when you were answering that question, and it's just we're seeing it more on the defensive side than the offense, but just the trust from the coaching staff to kind of play these younger players and give them these reps where historically we haven't seen that here in Minnesota with, when you think of Zimmer, like Zimmer was one holding rookies back in that old school mentality. Now we're kind of letting these guys get out there, get their feet wet a little bit. No comment.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's true.
I don't know if I agree with that, but
I see you reading the comments though.
Yeah, I mean, I was laughing at that for sure. No, yeah.
What do you mean you don't agree, Myles?
I think it was overplayed of people saying that Zimmer didn't play young players. It was you had to earn the opportunity, and I think you saw it in guys.
But do you think
like
those
Eric
opportunities
Kendricks earned his opportunity to be a starter? Like
there
as
was
a rookie.
Nobody here then.
Who's here now? Like, come on, on defense especially. Like, come on, let's not let like. Who's here now? Where we're like, oh my god, like
Brian Asamoah.
Really but like that's not a slight on Brian Asamoah. It's like the like depth chart is not that deep on defense to where you're like, oh my god, like there isn't the path to like that's probably why one of the reasons Pace probably came to Minnesota. The path to an opportunity is a lot easier here than it is other places. That doesn't mean these guys won't be good, but the path is clear. And I think, you have more of an opportunity. And if you show out, you're going to get opportunities. I think we overplay the idea that young guys don't get opportunities. They'll get opportunities if they're ready. And now that doesn't mean like coaches are always right in like letting guys sit. Some guys are more ready than coaches even think. They just got to get on the field. But like if a guy really shows out enough, they're going to start seeing opportunities. That's what we're seeing in Ivan Pace, for example. I think that's what we're going to see with guys like Roy and some of these other young guys like
Mekhi Blackman.
Like these guys are earning their opportunities. It's not just like they're being given; they got to earn it. Especially in the one place that people forget is like the meeting rooms. The meeting rooms are so important to getting on the field because if you can understand and speak the language and talk about the schemes and talk about your responsibilities in the like classroom setting, it goes a long way for coaches because that means that then can you translate it on the field. And I think if you can mirror those things up, that's when you see guys get opportunities.
I mean, and to like add, I guess, to Myles's point a bit, you look at, for every Ivan Pace or Mekhi Blackman or, whoever it is, right? There's Lewis Cine, who's a first round pick, who's still behind these veterans because he can't get over the hump. Yeah. Or Andrew Booth, who's a second-year player again, who's getting bypassed by lower round pick players, Caleb Evans, and getting more. It seems like Mekhi is getting some more opportunities than Booth is with the first team. So
your favorite pick of the draft, by the way.
Yeah, I was a big Booth guy. Yeah, I loved him.
No.
Oh, Mekhi. Yeah, no, yeah. I was pretty drunk that night. That was fun. To go to the questions, because I was going to bring this up actually, but Dustin asked the question, so we're going to read it off here. Is, can you think of a comp for Pace in the NFL? I was actually going to say this before he even asked that. Is he kind of gives me a from recollection here of the Hard Knocks from last year, Malcolm Rodriguez.
Okay.
Another guy, again, he was picked, I think, in the 6th round. Undersized guy, kind of a bit more of a thumper, read and react, but still undersized. Lower drafted player, I know Ivan Pace went undrafted, who came into camp with the Lions and just forced his way into the field because he played so well.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's kind of what I had as a comp for him. Obviously, I think Pace is a bit of a different player than Rodriguez is. I think he's a little bit more of a shooter and is maybe a bit more instinctual, but
not as athletic though.
Yeah, right.
Dude, Rodrigo, that dude, how's that a 6th round pick? I'm looking at his player. I'm just looking at his player profile
because he's 5'11", I think, isn't he?
Yeah, but the dude ran a 4.5. He benched 36. He got comped Darren Lee, and I'm just holy, his testing wise, I'm just it's crazy, right? I don't know.
Lee. That's also a good one.
No, that's a good comp though. I think that's a really good comparison in terms of size, instinctual abilities, and athleticism.
Yeah. So Sean said he didn't really ask a question, but I'm going to formulate this into a question. And Matt, I'm going to let you answer just because you always ask the questions and you don't get to answer anything.
That's true. You're putting the host on the spot here.
Yeah. So Sean says Jordan Addison if he can be an early contributor in the season early on, this offense will be special. What are the odds that you think that Addison can come in and really take that number 2 spot away from KJ and be a high level individual rookie contributor?
I think there's a really good chance that happens early. And the reason I kind of think it is because, and Myles and I talked about this yesterday at practice, but teams are going to double Justin Jefferson and put all of their attention on him the first few weeks of the season. And from that point forward, it's really going to be on guys like Addison and even KJ Osborne to prove that they can take advantage of the things that we could not really do last year until we got TJ Hawkinson, which is single coverage versus the defense. So, I mean, we all know how we feel on this show about Jordan Addison and kind of what he's going to bring to the game. You see it just how they're utilizing him, how they're lining him up at practice as well. Jet sweeps, motions, he's lining up on the outside, in the slot, whatever. And so his potential, I don't want to say he's going to be in the running for Rookie of the Year, but he's got that type of potential in him if he can start fast and early with the Vikings this year. 100%. That answer your question, Ryan? Or Sean, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But let's talk about some other guys. So the questions, by the way, keep them coming. But let's talk about some other guys just in Vikings training camp right now that are sort of catching your eyes. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the offensive side of the ball. But there are a lot of guys having good camps, so to speak. And we'll see what happens Thursday versus Seattle. But yeah, who are some of your top guys thus far?
You can go first.
I'd say Vidarian Lowe. Sounds like he's made the transition back over to left tackle, because I think he was a left tackle in college. He kind of mixed in a little bit more at right tackle last year. But I think with Blake Brandel moving inside, they've shifted him back over to the left side, and it sounds like he's having a pretty good camp. And I think he's a guy that I'm just excited to see how he progresses in preseason games, because he's going to get a lot of those reps, because we're not going to see Darrisaw, and we shouldn't. And so I think Lowe just basically starting majority of a game is just a lot of really good reps for him, and we'll see how he holds up, because I think he's a guy that he sounds like he could eventually, be that swing tackle, and you want that guy to have as many reps and opportunities as possible, because if he has to come in a pinch, can he play on both sides, how he handles both sides of the ball? But as a left tackle, and if Darrisaw gets banged up, and we've seen over the last couple of years, Darrisaw has gotten banged up. And so can Lowe kind of solidify himself as a solid backup, and it would just go better for like I think Kwesi in his first draft because so far some of those guys just haven't really shown yet enough. And that's not me saying that those guys are busts or anything like that, but I think it would just show that like, hey, some of these later round picks are developing into something, that we had, that's why we're keeping those guys around.
Absolutely. Guys, and impressing. I mean, obviously, there's
we've already kind of named the top ones, right?
Yeah, we did name some of the top ones. Obviously, even though he is losing some of these starter reps to Ivan Pace, I do think Asamoah is making a lot of splash plays, which again is what he's known for because he's the kind of guy that's gonna, again, maybe guess a little bit, but when he guesses right, it's a really great opportunity, as we mentioned earlier.
Interesting note, quick, by the way. Night practice just wrapped up for the Vikings tonight. Ivan Pace, again, got more reps with the one, but Brian Asamoah spent the night watching from the sideline. So we'll be curious to see if something happened there, if it's just a...
Well, we got to remember, guys get banged up, right? So, like,
yeah,
it's training camp. So, like, guys are going to get banged up, and they're going to be cautious with these guys. And so that doesn't mean, so just, like, it's good to note, but we don't really get much in terms of, like, health from these guys. So if they miss some snaps and stuff, sometimes it is just like guys getting banged up and whatnot.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Ryan.
No, you're good. You're good. And it seems like, and again, it's not like I'm seeing all of these reps or anything, but from what I'm reading on the Twitter sphere, Ed Ingram, it seems like he's stepping up a bit more this year in terms of pass protection. Now, is that because he's going against lesser competition because our D line isn't like stellar or anything like that, but it sounds like he's kind of taking that next step up, which is obviously exciting to see. And again, going back to another guy who's just like making splash plays. It seems like Lewis Cine is making splash plays, and then like in both directions, right? In terms of like, oh, he totally busted a coverage, which is not great, but then he's coming up and like making this huge, either tackle or interception or pass breakup. So he's just been, kind of all over the field from what I'm reading, which has been pretty cool to see because I really like Lewis Cine coming out. So hoping he can figure it out and get on the field this year.
Yeah, when we talked about just like our early 53-man roster prediction the other week, which was incredibly difficult once we finally put pen to paper, but that safety room with Lewis Cine, Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus, all those guys really is promising. Like, I don't think we've I can't think back to when we've had depth like that at the safety position where, like, if somebody went down in a given week, like, I would feel comfortable with the next guy sort of stepping in and filling that role.
Well, it's the only time, like Anthony Harris, when he was like the 2017, when he was like the third string
behind
safety.
Was Sendejo here then?
Yeah, that was Sendejo and Harry.
Yeah, that would have probably been the last time, because otherwise you've just been tossing in and out like Mistral Raymond back in the day, or
Jamarcus Sanford.
Yes.
Fun story. When I was an intern for the Vikings in 2013, I was using the porta potty during a night practice, and he rips the porta potty open on me, and he's like, "Oh shit, my bad." So that was pretty funny.
Oh man, yeah, I liked him though. And J-Ron Curse too is another one I forgot. He probably would have been around with the.
But he was never like
Harris.
But he never played as like the true safety. He was always kind of like that nickel, the big nickel. Star position. Never really played like deep safety for this team as much.
And shame on us, by the way, for not mentioning George Iloka. What are we doing here? We did have a question from our.
Wait, real quick.
Yeah.
One other guy that I think deserves a little bit of credit is Kairos Tonga. Obviously, he came back as an exclusive, exclusive rights free agent. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think obviously we know the depth on the D line isn't great. But if he can, he played pretty well when he came over to Minnesota last year in the middle of the season. I think if he can just continue to show out and be like that run stuffing, guy, maybe get a little bit of pressure from the middle. I think that's just important. They need that big body. Like Harrison Phillips didn't really in my opinion, hold up as a nose tackle. So I kind of like that shift that it seems like he's moving to more of a D end role. I think that's going to suit him a little bit better. And obviously Dean Lowry too. But I think Kyler Song, it sounds like he's just been a stalwart in the middle. And obviously we know we're not sure, like, right. Cause our interior line isn't the greatest or not the biggest, but at the same time, and like vice versa, we don't know how good, if this means how Kyler Song is good, but I think it's just like good to hear that, it sounds like he could be a pretty good, like have a pretty decent impact for this D line, or he's going to have to at the very least.
Yeah, it's a good call out there.
Yeah, and the other name that I'm really curious to watch in preseason is Jaquelin Roy. Mm-hmm. He got praise from O'Connell the other day, especially because they need somebody who's going to be able to step in and they need a lot of people to step up in the absence of Blake Lynch. And maybe I discounted what Blake Lynch maybe brought to that James Lynch, brought to that defensive line, but just Kevin O'Connell speaking about the versatility that he had to line up.
That's what I was going to say. It's
anywhere on that line,
important. Yeah.
Is going to be sorely missed. And when we were doing the training camp prediction or 53 roster prediction, I was like, yeah, he's probably on the fringe, but sounds like he was a lot more important than maybe we anticipated. So.
Oh, and one last guy too. I know we keep doing this, but the fact
this is a good thing.
Yeah, the fact that Caleb Evans has kind of come back from those concussions and just really shored up that CB2, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I love to hear that, just because he was playing with a lot of confidence last year for a 4th round rookie, and he's kind of backed that up in year 2, and it sounds like he's really taken that next step. I mean, like, clear and far away from Andrew Booth, from Blackman, from like any other CB behind him and Murphy. There's a distance there, and it's good to see that he's kind of rebounded and been able to have that confidence to kind of come back and take that spot back over.
Murphy is the interesting one, and interesting is probably a poor word choice, but he's not getting a lot of conversation around him right now, but it's not necessarily a bad thing that people aren't talking about him, because when we watched him yesterday at practice, he is as advertised. Everything that we had expected him to be, sort of in what you can take from a training camp practice, he was right there on the wide receivers' hips in their pockets. Justin Jefferson put a move on him, and he quickly recovered and had a pass breakup. Like, in most times, Jefferson's going to win that battle, but he's going to win that battle against 99% of the league. So
right,
to crap on Byron Murphy for losing a rep against Justin Jefferson, I'm not going to.
Number 2 player in all of football, not even just receivers. Number 2 player.
Does that surprise you guys?
No. I mean, honestly, he if Patrick Mahomes doesn't win the Super Bowl, maybe he's won. I mean, granted, Jalen Hurts probably would have been then, but I mean, he had a hell of a year last year. So.
He's the best non-quarterback in football, probably. Like,
yeah.
His impact, when you like look at all of it, when you talk just like pure talent, age, contract, like all of those things that when you encompass it all together, he's probably the single most impactful / best player at non-quarterback in the league. Like,
yep,
he's that good, and I think the Vikings need to do better by him. Essentially, like that's just kind of where we're at. Yeah,
and obviously, one shout out for our shows. One of our show's favorite, Josh Metellus. He's having a great offseason as well. So we're going to give him some love too in this. Who's impressing you from the Vikings training camp, because he's getting to play this interesting position in the defense that's just, and it sounds like he's just knocking it out of the park. So, and I'm happy for him, because he didn't get a lot of opportunities outside of special teams over his first 3 years. And it sounds like he's getting a lot of opportunity this year and taking advantage.
Well, sometimes it takes guys a little bit, right? And I think it's more than just like, I know it's a new scheme, but it's also just like the game in itself slowing down probably for him on defense. And that in itself is like, it can take a while for that to happen. And I think that's just, it's great news for a guy like him. And the timing is perfect, because, hopefully it's spring
time for a contract
to get paid. Yeah, exactly.
Let's get that man paid.
Get him paid.
I see some more people joining us here in the viewers. So we're taking questions for a little bit longer here tonight. So if you have any questions about the Vikings, the training camp, the upcoming season, certain players, whatever, fire them off in the chat. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, to your podcasts, wherever you listen to those. I want to go back to the Justin Jefferson thing just for one more second. Because we were sitting there again at practice yesterday, and it's first of all, it's so cool to see just all the kids and how excited they get for Justin Jefferson. Like, it is unreal, and it just takes you back to when you were a kid cheering for Moss. But just the way that Jefferson has sort of handled the whole contract stuff on and off the field, like showing up, participating in training camp, and just being the ultimate leader of that locker room. I just don't think that's just not typical. And to Miles's point, which I'm sure he'll probably say, is he knows the money's coming. So whether he gets it on August 9th or he gets it, in February, he's still going to be the richest wide receiver in NFL history. So we got a new question.
I think the Vikings, I think in my opinion, JJ doesn't need to be the one that's rushing to get paid. I think the Vikings are trying to rush to get him paid because that number is only going to go up as the cap continues to go up. So the earlier they can get ahead of it.
Would you, before we get to this question from KJ, would you do something similar to like what the Chiefs did with Mahomes and just like a 10-year?
Why would JJ do that?
Who knows? I'm just asking you.
I know it's different. I actually don't think that'd be a smart for the Vikings.
If he got $250 million to do that,
that's a little different.
That's a little different. But at the same time, there's no reason for him to do that. There's no reason really for us to do that. Yeah, I wouldn't do it for 10 years just because receivers don't last as long as quarterbacks do anyway. So him being 23, I believe, you wouldn't want to lock him up into his 30s. But I mean, yeah, if you can get him on a 6-7 year contract, obviously he's not going to do that. But if you could do that from a Vikings perspective, yeah, sure. But you're just not going to. So
that's like the Cowboys. The Cowboys were doing that in their early 2010s. You see guys like Tyron Smith, Zach Martin.
Yeah.
All those guys were getting 6-7 year contracts, and they're still I remember Tyron Smith being like, that dude's still on the same contract. Yeah. And he's still only 26, and I know he's older now, but it was just funny, right?
Going back to your comment, Matt, about Justin Jefferson, how cool it was to see all the kids just super excited. So we just started our football team this year, right? Last night, we just had our first practice, and as we were all the kids were introducing themselves to their new teammates. One of the questions was your favorite team and your favorite player, and we didn't have our full team there, but of the kids that were there, I want to say 80%, maybe 85% of the kids said Justin Jefferson. My kid said Randy Moss because he's a baller. But I mean, it was pretty amazing. And even if their favorite team wasn't the Vikings, we had somebody's favorite team is the Bills, one for the Panthers or whatever. But almost all the kids were saying Justin Jefferson is their favorite player.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love it. It's a great time to be a
Viking kids. Man. We had Randy Moss. I mean, for me, it was Chris Carter, but I obviously loved Randy Moss. Yeah, I'm saying I loved Moss too, but Chris Carter was my favorite receiver. But we had Randy Moss. These kids get Justin Jefferson, but it's this. It's so cool that that's what the impact that we had as kids with Moss, they're getting with JJ and that same type of thing. It's just really cool.
You feel bad for the kids who were born just right after the Moss era and then had to wait until we got. They had to fight with Bobby Wade and Bernard Berrien and Troy Williamson.
Kids born in 06, 05, 06.
Yeah, God.
Or no, just kids born in 2000. So when they became fans, it was 06, 07. Yeah. I mean, but they got Adrian Peterson, who was
Devin Aroma should do
in his own right. He was an absolute superstar. So
yeah. By the way, I laugh at these players, but I couldn't go out there and do what they do. So. I probably couldn't even try out. So,
there was a question about people. I saw someone saying something about the jugs machine because the players like to go and use the jugs machine, all different positions. People
if you could catch one.
Yeah, I know I could. That's what I'm saying. Obviously, when it gets super high, like I know I could.
Have you guys
Like,
seen that clip though of it was Kevin Hart at the Rams
oh
training
god,
camp,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he was doing the jug machine for the punts, and he got close to one of them, but not even like it was horrible.
Just so you're talking just like straight on, right? Like straight on jugs machine.
Yeah, I'm used to it. Yeah, I can
How-
catch them. Obviously, the faster it goes, the harder it gets, or the closer you get, the harder it gets. So I'm not saying I'm gonna be perfect getting up there like with
All right,
someone
we
like
got to get a
Nathan,
jugs machine.
Somebody's
Got to hook up.
I'm just saying
Let's
some
prove
of those.
it.
I'm just saying some of those I can catch. That's all. Like,
I'm gonna get a black eye for one of those for sure.
I think I could catch a few of them. Maybe not as.
All right. We're gonna get a jugs machine.
Yeah,
we're gonna test this out. We're gonna do it live too, so all these viewers can watch this too. We're gonna watch you guys make a fool of yourself.
Josh can hook us up.
Yeah, let's get down to the field and do a couple test runs. But let's get back to these questions here.
Yeah.
Myles, I'll give this one to you because I kind of already answered it. But do you think we'll make the same mistake with Jordan Addison like Jefferson and not play him a lot early?
No, I think the biggest issue with JJ for him is obviously that was the COVID year, right? So he had COVID coming like during training camp. So there's a little bit of a different situation. I think if he had been healthy that whole training camp, you probably would have seen a little bit more. And even then, he still played the first couple of games. He just didn't get the same opportunities. And I think, but I will say the big difference though is besides Zimmer and like the offense in itself, I think that what we saw is like Olabisi Johnson was the wide receiver too.
Your boy, BC Johnson.
I like BC. No, don't get me wrong, but like
BC would have been good if the injuries didn't.
But KJ Osborne is light years better than like BC Johnson, and I think that bar is harder to reach. It'll be harder for like that was easy for JJ to take from BC. I don't think it's going to be an easy thing to take from KJ Osborne if you're Jordan Addison, and so I think that there's a little bit of a harder road, but I still think he's going to see the field a lot and get a lot of opportunities early. Yeah. But I do think early on, we were talking about this, Matt, is like I think it's going to be a lot more like KJ and JJ to start with Addison sprinkled in. And then as the season goes, I think as Addison gets more acclimated into offense, that's when he's going to start progressing even more. But it might not be like the first couple weeks just because teams are ramping up. And I think KJ's earned an opportunity to see what he can do.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think back to Jefferson's rookie year, but like he burst onto the scene week 3. So it's not even like he was held out that much. Like once he
imagine if he had those 2 other games, he would have broken some more records, man.
He probably would have. And when he played in those games, but obviously not to the same degree.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, I think he had like 2 targets or 3 targets in those 2 games or something. Yeah.
They'll probably draw some stuff up for Addison early though.
Oh yeah. Well, you 100%. Saw it in the practice yesterday. Like I think in 3 receiver sets, I think in bunch formations and Addison moving around. I think they're going to interchange those guys. I think the one thing about all 3 of those guys is they're all interchangeable. They're all good in the slot. I think they all can win on the outside. I think KJ is probably the one that probably needs to be in the inside more than the other 2. But Addison as a rookie, I think the more you can kind of get him off the line of scrimmage and moving around and getting him easier releases is just going to help him as he progresses in the NFL, whereas KJ and JJ have experienced it more. So they have just more of that experience and ability and strength, like NFL strength, to get off some of that press coverage. Whereas I think it'd be smart to just like as Addison, grows and progresses, you kind of give him some of the easier releases.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, KJ. Mm-hmm. Ryan, you want to take this one from Pong? Who is going to be the best safety next to Smith, or who is going to be the safety next to Harrison Smith in the late of the season?
I mean, again, your hope is it's going to be Lewis Cine, right? Just because we invested the draft capital in him.
Bynum didn't miss a snap last year.
Yeah, you see all the potential that he has, the physical tools that he comes with. And I'm not the biggest Cam Bynum fan, honestly. Like, I don't dislike him, but like I just felt like he made a lot of mistakes last year. And was that scheme? Was that him? I'm not sure. But I'd like to see it be Lewis Cine. That would be my hope. But again, if Cam Bynum can keep playing and stay healthy and stay in favor of Kevin O'Connell and staff, you just never know. But I would assume it's going to be one of those 2. And the reason why I don't say Metellus is because I think he's kind of locked into this other role that is kind of that star role that he's going to excel at. So
yeah, if he's starting next to Smith at the end of the year, I think we might have some bigger issues going on, which is injuries and whatnot. But I can't stop thinking about the jugs machine thing because you hear could you get a yard in the NFL, right? Like that thing, and I know for a fact I could not get a yard. I don't think I could get
honestly.
Honestly,
I do think you could get a yard with a QB sneak.
I don't know, man.
But I mean, just because your offensive line and you're 6'4", aren't you?
If you can catch the snap.
Yeah, if you can grab the snap and basically just like lean forward, you should get a yard given your size, Matt.
But the jugs machine, I feel like, is a lot easier.
Well, it's because there's no pressure. It's just the ball coming.
You don't have 300+ pound men coming to come rip your head off.
What are other like football equivalent things that we could do that would be like impressive? Catching a field goal, catching a punt.
I could kick a field goal. Well, I don't know if I could kick a field goal with players coming after me, but
do we need to call Ryan Longwell up again and get him on the show and
I need to. In high school,
kicking drills.
Yeah, well, like in high school, I used to like practice field goals with like friends and stuff, and at one point I hit a 45-yarder.
Okay,
but yeah, I mean that was probably pure luck. So,
speaking of, you said punt return, Myles, or just catching a punt.
Catching a punt.
We got to keep an eye on the punts in the preseason game because they looked a little wonky yesterday.
Yeah, I was just curious. I wonder if that's just like them trying to like situational punt and like directional punt. Yeah. Because sometimes those don't always come off the foot well when you're specifically trying to angle. But yeah, it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. So they were catching them and they looked.
And I hear the kicker competition's kind of tight.
Nah, who cares?
Myles doesn't care until we lose a game from it.
I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like, it's not like the options are great, anyways. Like,
yes,
I don't know. So unless Joseph really loses the competition, I see it being Joseph, like outright.
I just don't want to have to try to say the other kicker's name, like Podlensny. God, it just sounds brutal.
Podlunsky or something.
We'll make up a nickname for him.
Yeah.
Jack. We'll call him Jack.
Jack. Yeah. Real quick, Dan mentioned Addison needing to gain 20 pounds of muscle. That dude cannot. There's no way he could add 20 pounds to that frame.
He'll lose so much speed.
I don't think his size is going to be a problem, and I think he'll naturally gain muscle and gain a little bit of weight as he grows and gets older. He's only 21, but be careful of like wanting some of these speed players to like get too big because that's just that's not his style of game. And he doesn't have that frame to like build that type of muscle to be that type of player. So just be cautionary about that.
Dustin,
hi, Mary.
Hey, Mary. Yeah, we got a couple more people in the chat. Dustin and Aaron and Mary. Dustin, you've been here. Sorry. We'll take a few more questions and then we'll kill this show. But should they have Addison fielding punts? I think I just saw today.
Yesterday he did too, right?
Well, he did field them yesterday, but I think I just saw today that Matt Daniels was like, he's not in that competition anymore. He's going to focus on.
Honestly, even if it's not a competition, I think it's just more about just having emergency situations. Like, hey, who do we know that could catch a punt if we have to? Because our punt returner gets hurt. Yeah. You have to have more than one or two or three guys because you just got to know who's back there. And situationally, like maybe, if it's not Rager, if it's Powell or whatever, something happens to those guys. And it's one of those situations where like, we want to get a guy that's really good with the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
We need to spark something. Maybe you put Addison back there. I mean, it's one of those, like, what Matt Daniels said, he's the coach. He's on the competition, but I think just knowing that he could probably do it in emergency situations is always good.
Yeah, so he said he's in the backup role, but he's not in the mix to actually, return punts. So right, exactly what you said. Sounds like the guys, though, Brandon Powell, Jalen Rager. Any guess for the third guy?
Some cornerback.
Thayer Thomas.
Thayer Thomas. Come on, he's got to make the team. We need his grit. We need that. We need that workout warrior.
We have to answer Mary's question. Will we have a blowout game this season?
Losing
so in the wrong direction, I would say
Mary,
so,
is the question, will we get blown out? Because I think ever since I've been a Viking fan, we're always good for one a year.
Yeah.
Just depends when. But
the schedule this year too, like when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, you got the Eagles again. Like it's not that I'm not saying it's going to happen, but this is a really tough schedule. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did get blown up. But also hopefully they could find a way to blow out a team too. I think that's something they weren't able to do last year because their point differential was so bad. But yes, I think we should be able to blow somebody out this year. Tampa Bay isn't that good.
Dude, they got Baker Mayfield. They are going to be rocking and rolling this
year. You mean Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask?
Yeah. If he wins the competition, we're in a lot of trouble. If he loses that competition, we'll be fine.
I think I feel pretty confident about week one, but
yeah, I do too.
I should feel confident about week one. Yeah.
I hope we blow a team out. That's my biggest thing for this year is I just want to see when we win, make it convincing. I don't need every Sunday to end with me on my couch watching a Kevin O'Connell presser with a glass of whiskey being like, holy shit, how did
you're
we
gonna
pull
do that
off?
anyways?
That's true, but I don't need the heart pumping.
It should be the celebratory of oh, this is nice and easy, let's go. Versus
exactly.
I'm drinking this because I don't know if my heart's gonna last much longer.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, Hard Knocks starts tonight.
It does, yeah.
Well, shoot, what are we doing here?
Ago.
I know. Let's wrap up.
Well, I mean, I guess. Oh, we didn't answer the question from Twitter. So hold on, let me find it. I could pull up Miles's picture here from his time. I did see you got some solidarity though. Is that your former teammate?
Yeah.
Eric the Red, which was a great bar by the stadium, is no longer exists, I don't think. Nope. What are the career outlooks for DJ Wanham and Pat Jones?
Backups.
God damn, Miles is cutthroat tonight.
It's true. Am I wrong?
It's true.
I would say yes on DJ Wanham. I don't know. Patrick Jones maybe could do something. He showed flashes.
Is he starting with us?
Fine.
Then no. And then no. He's a backup.
I just want to see the good in people.
I mean, I like him. There's nothing wrong with being a backup. You could be a good rotational backup pass rusher. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just don't see him being a
full-time starter.
If he's a starter, it's probably due to injury, and maybe he can earn his way into a low-level starter job. But my guess is he's probably just a career.
We're in trouble.
Solid backup. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're in trouble if anybody on the D line kind of goes down.
Matt, did you want to keep Danielle Hunter?
Yeah.
Why? Because we have Wanham and Jones. Those guys are set to start. Why would you want to keep Hunter then?
I just like to. This is going to be Patrick Jones' second year in the system. Let's just kind of. I liked what I saw from him last year.
He's third year in the league.
He's great. He's great as a backup.
But it's been a different. I think we need to talk about. We don't have to talk about it actually, but just be aware that a lot of these defensive guys that were drafted in 2020, this is their third scheme in 3 years. That is a lot for a brand new player in the league. So that's why I'm willing to give a little bit more of a look at Josh Metellus. Now we got to see it on the field, but everyone is speaking highly of him, and this is his fourth year.
Did you see Chaz Surratt pick off Kellen Mond? I mean, look at him. He's just doing great in his third scheme too.
Can remove Ryan from the stream here, but oh my gosh. All right, last question here, Miles. You can take it. Scene and Booth, both busts? Question mark.
Always too early for me. Year two, there's no way I can just call the camp of year 2.
Year 3, though, he's ready to just.
No, I'm just saying it's too early. I'm not saying they can't both end up being busts. I just think it's way too early. We got it seen, especially that dude had a compound fracture last year. And like the fact that he's playing right now and like is fully recovered is in itself like amazing.
Yeah.
So like I'm willing to give him a little bit more grace than I am Booth, but I just think we just got to give those guys a little bit more time to like figure it out. No, I've never used like
bust.
It shouldn't, because it should be about how you do as a player, like on the field. If you can play, obviously, because you can't control injuries. I think like injuries is one of those things, especially like the freak ones, like what happened to Scene last year. Like that's a freak situation. You can't control those things. You can control, if you're on the field, how you play. And those are things where where I'll judge in that way.
There's another world where Mike Hughes is still on the team. He doesn't tear his ACL.
He's still in my heart. He's in Atlanta now, though.
Yeah, okay. And he got torched by a third-string running back.
He didn't get torched.
Robinson.
This was a really good play.
Torch.
But yeah, that's funny.
Are we going to Skullfest? What's Skullfest?
I don't know what Skullfest is either.
I don't either. I'll look into it, I guess. But well, that's all I got. So we're running out 50 minutes. I know Myles, he's got time right now, probably without the kids, so he's gonna go watch Aaron Rodgers in Hard Knocks.
Or sleep.
But yeah, we're gonna keep doing this kind of live Q&A, hopefully every week. Maybe not the same group because life is busy, but make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Come back next week, give us some questions. Who knows? Maybe we'll have done our jugs competition by that point. I'm gonna start.
I didn't say a damn thing about me catching one of those. I'm not part of this.
I know Ryan didn't set himself up. Ryan made sure he's like, hold on.
I'm pretty sure all I'm gonna catch is a black eye if I do that, or a broken finger, one of the two.
I'm trying to wear gloves.
We'll see. But until next time, folks. Skol Vikings.